Oh. Hari Om, and greetings from Niagara Falls. At the end of Vibhishana Gita, which is in the Ramayana, Shri Vibhishana is at Bhagwan Rama's feet and he's crying. Earlier, he was crying out of fear. Now he's crying out of joy. And what he shares with Bhagwan Rama is that not only am I no longer afraid for you, I'm not afraid at all. And the essence of his realization is that if you don't have any enemies inside of you, then you can't have any enemies outside of you. If there's no jealousy, if there's no anger, etc., in your heart, then there's not going to be any sense of jealousy, anger, and so on as you relate to people. I share this because in our society, the word united is used a lot. But as we listen to the news, as we interact with people, it seems like that is just lip service, that society is quite disunited. Do you all agree? And so, I feel very relieved being with all of you. All day yesterday, all day today, I've been thinking about Buffalo. I'm so close to Buffalo physically and even emotionally. I have invested many years into Chinmaya Mission Buffalo. And it's quite distressing feeling what has happened, what is happening. And so being with all of you, I fundamentally feel relieved that when we use the word come to unity in our community, it is not lip service. It is our truth. For years, and specifically this year, where our year-long courses are completing, what do we do every month, every week, every day? We unite with ourselves. We try not to have any enemies within. And when we can do this, then we try to unite with others also. Family, community, and so on. Tonight is a very beautiful expression of this uniting. Tonight we have our mentorship program workshop. Many of you are part of our mentorship program, over 100 of you. In our mentorship program, we have mentees who are young adults who unite with mentors who are evolving adults. And tonight, our mentorship program is being combined with our Vanaprastha culture workshop. Our Vanaprasthas are our established adults. So how lovely that we essentially have 3 generations of seekers who all have the same vision to unite, to not feel any sense of being an enemy. Our workshop tonight is going to be facilitated by 3 Vanaprasthas. I've known each of these Vanaprasthas for more than 10 years. For one of them, for 40 years. He knew me before I was born. And that makes me even more relieved because they have been seekers for decades. And so they are role models in sharing their own life lessons on simple living, high thinking. This will be directed towards Dharma, Artha, and Kama, and how all of that relates to moksha. They have lots to share, so I'm going to stop now, and our team will continue to facilitate as our Vanaprasthas begin. To all of our Vanaprasthas, my appreciation to all of you for being who you are, and for everyone else to help me feel relieved of my distress.
Hariom Vivekji and Hariom everyone. Our next three speakers, as Vivekji mentioned, are dynamic members of our Vanaprastha community, and we will be hearing from each of them for 15 minutes each, after which we will have announcements from the mentorship team, closing by Vivekji, and after that, there will be about 15 minutes for Q&A for those who have questions and would like to stay on. Our first speaker tonight is Suryakant. Suryakant was born in Kenya and moved to Newfoundland 37 years ago. I was asking some of the Americans if they knew where Newfoundland was. It's rather questionable if they know the answer. He has been married for 49 years and is a father of two. By profession, he is a pediatric cardiologist, and he's been deeply immersed in Vedanta from childhood, having practiced the principles of Satya, Ahimsa, and Brahmacharya. His further association with Chinmaya Mission has him deeply immersed in various study groups, as well as Vanaprastha culture. Welcome, Suryakant.
Hariom, Shitalji, Vivekji, Vijayji, all mentors and mentees, and pranam to all. Thank you for this opportunity to reveal my life story in relation to Dharma, Artha, and Karma. I was born in Kisumu, Kenya, in Africa, and I wish to say that I am 75 years young. I scaled Mount Kilimanjaro when I was 17 years of age. I used to run 10Ks, but now with my age, I go to the gym and play golf when I can. After schooling, I entered the medical school in Kampala, Uganda, and 5 years later, graduated as a physician at 23 years of age. I went to Nairobi for internship, and a year of internship, we had the government service. So I was posted into Narok. The Narok, if you know, is a center of the Masai Mara, and which is the largest wildlife game park in Kenya. It was an amazing experience. I looked after infants, children, adults, delivered babies, did cesarean sections when necessary, fixed broken bones. And I remember operating on a child who was injured by a spear in her abdomen. And I also remember looking after a young Maasai man who was gored by a rhino horn, so that his gut fell out of the stomach after the abdomen. He went home, they sutured his abdomen with safety pin, he came to the hospital, the gut was viable, and there was no option but for me to go in and operate on him. And it was a trying time, but it went fine. I traveled with the flying doctors to remote areas, holding clinics, and at the same time saw a lot of wild game. I returned to Nairobi, joined the training program in pediatrics, and became a pediatrician. The heart was always my favorite subject, and ended up training as a pediatric cardiologist at the Great Ormond Street in London, UK, and returned to Nairobi. I had a successful career as a pediatrician and a pediatric cardiologist in the main national hospital. However, in 1982, there was an aborted coup, and that was a lesson, and I decided we should make a move. So in November 1985, I was offered a locum job at the northern tip of Newfoundland, right in the northern tip, and it was a remote area, 4,000 people, but a big hospital. And 2 weeks later, I was offered a full-time job. So Hasu, my wife and children joined me to check out and agreed, yeah, it was small, but heavenly and place and very secure. That was the best part of our life, peace at last, with sense of security. Purpose, full performance. It was fine to stay in that place for the rest of the lifetime, but to keep my options open, I went into residency pediatric training to meet the Canadian requirements at the age of 42 years, and then fellowship in pediatric cardiology at the age of 47. And after meeting the requirements of the Canadian College and passing my exams, started working full-time at the age of 49 in pediatric cardiology in St. John's Children's Hospital. And hopefully I can retire within a few months now. I was appointed as a director of pediatric training program after myself going through all that unnecessary training for the second time. And I served in that capacity for 8 years. And subsequently, I was also appointed as the examiner with the Royal College of the Surgeons and Physicians. And I remain on the board of examiners and have been there for the last 20 years. So this will be my last year again. So this sounds like a fairy tale, but there were lots of ups and downs and hardships in our life that did not stop me, us following and pursuing my Dharma and accepted the phalas or outcomes as they were bestowed. Born in a Jain family, daily prayers with Navkar mantra was a natural way to start the life. There was a Hindu temple, and my first exposure was the stories about Ramayana, Lord Shiva, Bhagwan Krishna, and Sri Hanumanji from very early childhood. At that age, I picked up on their good and the strength, and japa became part of my daily routine from a very young age and even up to now. Saturday was a must go to the temple and pray to Sri Hanumanji and Lord Shiva and recite Hanuman Chalisa. My father had a clothing store, and it was natural for me to help him out after school hours and on Saturdays if I did not have any other activities. And that was my first lesson in money management. My father was very knowledgeable both about Jain scriptures and Hindu scriptures. And I learned a lot from him. I started reciting Gayatri Mantra from a very young age. I came to know in my childhood that I had an older sibling before I was born. He was ill. My parents took him to a physician's home office, and the physician refused to see him because it was late at night. My father, and that really made me angry at that time. And I vowed that I will become a doctor, become a child specialist, and never fail in my duty. I'm glad that I did not falter in that pursuit. I had a younger brother, Manoj, 6 years of age, 11 years younger, who was knocked down by a truck when he was coming home from school. He sustained severe head injury and passed away in February 1964. This was a severe blow. I lost my faith in Bhagwan as I understood him then and stopped believing in God. How could he be so cruel to such a young boy? My grandfather gave me my first lesson that although it was very sad indeed, and we all feel the hurt, it may have been auspicious for his spirit or soul. He was only 6 years of age, had no time to sin, and this was last part of his journey. Now he's free from the circle of birth and death, and I still remember him fondly. Vivekji keeps on reminding us that we are the children of our original creator, and we are brought together for a reason. At that young age, Manoj taught us a lot. I met Hasu during our internship year, and we got married in February 1973. It's kind of a big story in between, so I can't relay that right now. On May 19th, 1975, today is the anniversary. Our first newborn unfortunately passed away at the age of 36 weeks gestation before he was delivered. It was a big shock, but we consoled ourselves that this maybe was his last birth to an end to his journey of life and death. In March 1976, I was being driven home from another city after presenting at a medical conference. It was a very hot day, and there was a nasty car crash after the tire burst. I have total amnesia of that 1 week up to now. The car is said to have rolled over several times, and I was non-responsive. I'm told that one of the physicians driving in a car behind us lay me in his back seat and drove me 100 kilometers to the main private hospital in Nairobi, Kenya. At that time, Hasu was pregnant with our son Anand, and some also sent news to her that I was hurt badly, unresponsive, and may have passed away. Hasu and family searched for me all around and found me in ICU. After 3 weeks in ICU in the hospital and 3 months later, I recovered to go back to work and finish off my training in pediatrics. One of the physicians who was at site told us later that I was chanting, "Oh Rama, oh Rama." A new life for sure, and happiness with birth of our son Anand in 76. In 1982, there was an aborted coup in Kenya, as I mentioned earlier. While I was going on to the hospital for my duties, I was held up at a gunpoint by the drunk army guy, who was bent upon shooting us, mainly because, according to him, we had broken the curfew, which in fact had been lifted up. Another sensible army man looked at my physician's credentials and told me to drive off. It was the most terrifying experience of my lifetime. I was numbed. And this was another life given to me, a lesson learned. And for the sense of security, we thought we should make a move. Meanwhile, my father had a fall and sustained a hip fracture. He had a successful hip joint replacement, but unfortunately had developed acute myeloid leukemia, for which there was no therapy available at that time. We cared for him at home, and despite all that, he remained equanimous, never complained, kept on reciting his japa. He passed away 9 months later at the age of 64. In full awareness, bid us all goodbye and asking forgiveness, or Michami Duklam, and finally said, "My call has come." He closed his eyes with a big smile. All that we are now could not have been achieved without the tireless support of my wife, Hasu. And she herself an anesthetist in Kenya. After moving to Canada, however, while I furthered my study, she looked after the home front, looked after children's needs, attending to their school programs, their teacher-parent meetings, and looked after my mother who had moved with us. My mother passed away 2 years later, and her dad had to wind up his home in Kenya and used to come and stay with us 4 to 6 months every year. And we were fortunate to care for him. So money is not everything, but it does go a long way. My father had given me valuable advice. Let 10% or more of your earnings go straight into savings without you saying it. Never buy on credit, to live within limits. Think twice. Do you really need it? Can you do without it? Instead, use that to care for those in need. Did I follow the rules? Absolutely, and still do, to live within our means. I have followed the basic principles, as Shitalji mentioned. And I'm so very indebted to Vivekji for further clarifying meaning of each of these principles. And I simply was awed by the same. He presents everything with such clarity. As I mentioned, my exposure to Vedanta came in 1990 when we moved to St. John's, and we have Chinmaya Mission Swamijis visit us every year for 5 to 7 days. We were privileged to have had fortune to listen to Vivekji discourse in live on Hanuman Chalisa when he visited us in August 2016. We were, of course, surprised to see Vivekji as young as he was, and he still is, and yet how passionate he was in how we preached with clarity that brought conviction and won our heart. We are pleased to be able to attend via Zoom. They attend daily sessions on meaningful mornings and many other sessions run by Vivekji, Vijayji, and locally by Meenaji. One needs Guru to learn Vedanta. And thank you so much for imparting to us the contents, and we love every moment of it. Being exposed to all this gives us a greater meaning to life, the self, and eases Vanaprastha stage of life in preparation. Declutter, simplify life, minimize the needs. I'm blessed with Hasu. We've been married for 49 years, known each other for 52 years, and with two children, both Anand and Ashna, being physicians, and a grandson, Zuri. Each day of life is now a bonus. We are joyous. Lots of ups and downs in the past, but these are two sides of a coin. They're all past. There's always an end to the adversity. We have attachments to the family and friends, and personally to the well-being of the patients that I've come to care for. And yes, their pain does bring sorrow. But I've learned to empathize and help out and support in whichever way and whatever way we can. We try to maintain silence in the midst of all the madness that goes around. So much gratitude to our original creator, to our parents, for what they did us, to Vivekji, Vijayji, and to this, our new family. Adios.
So much gratitude to you, Suryakanti, for your very open and vulnerable sharing. Next, I would like to introduce Kamini ji, who's from London, Canada. Kamini ji is an associate professor of psychiatry at Western University and works at the Victoria Hospital in London, Ontario. She is married and is a mother of two. She serves as a board member for Chinmaya Mission London. And there is only one thing on her bucket list, and that is to be independently joyous. Welcome, Kamini ji.
Hari Om. To begin with, I would like to thank Vivekji, Vijayji, all the organizers of this workshop, and all the attendees for giving me this opportunity to reflect on my life and share the lessons learned. And I must say that I totally dedicate these lessons to Vivekji and Vijayji. Let me start with the background of who I am. I am Satchidanand, but this body and name was born in India. I grew up in a very average Hindu family, not very religious, not greatly spiritual. My father was in the army, my mom was a homemaker, and we traveled all over India. I finished my schooling from Delhi, and then I did my medical school from Lady Harding Medical College, again in Delhi, and did my post-graduation. And then I got a chance to move to UK for a research, and then I finished my psychiatry residency there. As I reflect back, I do remember that when I was in my mid or late 30s, I think I was going through a midlife crisis because I started questioning the meaning of life. I was like, is this it? Because that time I was finishing my residency and there was nothing more to learn education-wise. I was happily married for 10 years by then, and I had two lovely girls. And, you know, I would wake up and go to work and pick up the girls and then cook and eat, drink, be merry, and go to sleep and then start again. So I did start questioning the meaning of life. And it seems that God was listening, and he miraculously created two jobs, perfect jobs for myself and Akshay. That's an amazing story that I'll share another day, how we landed up in London, Ontario. But those two jobs were created in London for us. I never heard of London outside of England prior to landing here. So 2010, we came to London, and within 6 months of landing here, we got introduced to two organizations. One was, of course, Chinmaya Mission. The other one was Art of Living Foundation. I naturally got very attracted towards Chinmaya Mission, and my husband, Akshay, he was attracted to Art of Living, and we've been with these organizations ever since for the last 12 years. My first introduction to Vedanta was through Vivekji, and I'm very grateful to Lata, who invited me to listen to Vivekji's discourse at her home. And that was a game changer. I never went back. I then started attending Bhagavad Gita classes on Sunday afternoons. And then after a few years, I also volunteered as a Bal Vihar teacher. I would look forward to Sunday afternoons, and I would feel very high on this knowledge. But Monday to Friday, my life was still miserable. I must say that the jobs I joined as an assistant professor of psychiatry. There was a lot of responsibilities in this academic job. I had 2 young children. There was just too much to do and not enough time. And I did realize that something had to change. I could not change my responsibilities, but I could change my attitude. In a satsang, a question was asked to Vivekji: how do you integrate spiritual life into secular life? And Vivekji answered, there are no 2 lives. There's only spiritual life. That made so much sense. I realized I was keeping my Sunday afternoons separate from the rest of the week. So the first lesson I learned was apply this knowledge 7 days a week, 365 days a year. Chapter 3, Karma Yoga. It says, do your job with no doership or deservership. Lord Krishna says, I am the controller, you are just an instrument. And when I started truly believing in it, I could see how he was helping me, how he was protecting me every day and making decisions for me. My faith in God increased exponentially. I'll quote some examples from my work. And this happens all the time, but I clearly remember, at 9 o'clock, I had a new consult book in my clinic. A new consult means a 2 hours appointment. You have to see a new patient, get to know them, discuss diagnosis, management. At 8:50, my pager goes and there's a call from Emerge saying, we had a very busy night last night. We have 15 patients admitted for mental health. 2 of them are yours. Could you please come down and round on them and let us know the disposition plan? When the Emerge nurse calls, she assumes that the person on the other end has nothing else to do. They will just drop everything and come to Emerge. So I just took a deep breath and I said, okay, I will see what I can do. I'll try to be there as soon as possible. So I put the phone down. I started looking at my calendar frantically to see if there's any other meeting I can reschedule later in the day, or if there's a patient who's not as urgent, who wouldn't mind. And while I'm doing all this, at 8:55, my phone rings and my secretary says, Kamini, your 9 o'clock is canceled. Do you want me to book another one? I said, no, I'm going to Emerge. I was like, Hanumanji, you saved me. And this happens all the time. So I don't care, Earlier I used to be very anxious about my day, but I don't take care of my calendar at all because it's Bhagwan who takes care of it. Another incident, I saw somebody against cancellation. So we have a cancellation clinic that we maintain, that if somebody cancels at the last minute, we book other people who are urgently waiting. So I saw somebody, again, a 2-hour appointment. We did the forms, letters, whatever needs to be done. And then this person starts crying. I was like, why are you crying? He's like, you don't know what you've done for me. I'm so thankful to you. If you hadn't seen me today, or if you hadn't done this note, I wouldn't have got my paycheck and I didn't have money for groceries. And I said, don't thank me, thank God. And I explained to him and explained to myself why thank God. Because it was him, because of whom this patient who was booked originally fell sick and canceled the appointment. My secretary called 3 different patients who were on the cancellation list. The first 2 were not available. The third one picked up the phone and was willing to come in 30 minutes to see us. And there I was. I had to see a patient. I just saw him. I just did my job. And this is how, I truly believe that he is the director and we are just the actors. We are playing our role. And even in my personal life, day to day, small little things, I always see God's play in my life. Even when you're booking a vacation, it's like, it's so stressful nowadays to even book a vacation, to coordinate the calendars of my 4 family members and find the right weekend or the right week. And sometimes I just leave and I'm like, okay, whatever will be. And Bhagwan just creates circumstances that there's only one week which is the best for everybody, and that just happens. So that's great. Now, coming back to applying this knowledge, living Gita every day, I was highly inspired by Gurudev's quote, do your best and leave the rest. It's such a simple quote, but it means so much. I started questioning myself, what is doing your best? What does that mean? And I realized after attending discourses, with Vivekji and Vijayji, it is actually going beyond your comfort zone, following your responsibilities with no liking or disliking. So I started questioning myself, what is the purpose? What is the intention behind this, whatever you're doing? Is it for selfish reasons or is it for a greater good? Are you actually going beyond your comfort zone? And that was when I got inspired to, start volunteering more for Chinmaya Mission, in spite of my full calendar. At work, I made sure to give more than 100% to my patients, to residents. And things happen. It's like, again, I normally book 30 minutes for a patient, and you do everything that can be done. And then at the last minute, when you are finishing and you say, oh, is there anything else I can do? And I expect that they'll say, yeah, we are done. I'll see you next time. And then say, oh, by the way, my H&R block person said, could you ask your doctor to complete the disability tax credit form for me? And my mind goes, no, that's another 20 minutes. I don't have time. And then Lord Krishna says, isn't that the opportunity for seva? Isn't that what Chinmaya Mission Pledge says every week that we recite? Producing more than what we consume and giving more than what we take. So I created a seva hour in my calendar. 4 to 5 p.m. is a seva hour, when I do whatever needs to be done, no questions asked. And do your best and leave the rest. I think the second quote is equally important. Second part of the quote is equally important. I would do my best, but still I keep worrying about, what's going to happen next and what will be the results. And I realized that in spite of my best efforts, the outcome for each of my patients is different. And I realized very soon that I'm not the controller. I have to let go. I just have to accept his will. Sthane. Vivekji has explained very well. All is as it is. My next lesson that I learned in my life is, when hardships happen in your life, know for sure God really loves you. I must say that I have a very straightforward, unadventurous life. But in the last few years, 2019, 2021, have been pretty challenging professionally as well as personally. But I felt that during these years, I grew exponentially. I thought God specifically created the circumstances for me to make me grow and come closer to him. We talk about these sadhana chatushtay, those fourfold qualifications that a seeker has to develop. When these circumstances arise, that is the time when I developed titiksha, shraddha, my faith in God increased so much. Viveka, I started questioning what is changing and what is changeless. And I started hanging on more to change less, started attending more and more satsang. And then vairagya. You totally get disillusioned when such things happen. You're going up and down all the time. You actually get disillusioned with this world, and you actually start feeling this world is not worth coming back to. Bhaj Govindam. Okay, so the next lesson that I learned is, when we sincerely and consistently put our efforts to rearrange our external worlds, that is our lifestyle that Vivekji emphasizes on, and Vijayji as well, then our internal world naturally becomes effortless. And it's so beautiful. I've seen this happening to myself. Vijayji often says in his satsangs, if you treat Bhagwan as a second-class citizen, do you think he'll treat you as a first class? And that made so much sense to me. I started prioritizing satsang, creating more time. I used to feel there's no time in my calendar. No, but create time. Cut down on social engagement. Cut down time spending on social media. Sleep less and create more time. And I feel that this knowledge is actually addictive. If you don't attend, every day satsang, you start getting some withdrawal symptoms. Like, we all need our morning dose of methadone. I mean, meaningful mornings to feel good. Otherwise, you start getting sucked into this world of doership and deservership. And I must say, 12 years ago, I was attending only one Bhagavad Gita class on a Sunday afternoon. And here I am, I attend 4 classes a week, plus I facilitate 2 study groups under the guidance of Vijayji. And I consider myself really blessed that at the age of 48, I feel ready to enter Vanaprastha. I must say that when I tell my peers and my family, my sister, she's visiting us, that I'm planning for retirement, she looks at me as if I have two horns on my head. But I feel that it's the meaning of Vanaprastha that we really have to understand. And I'm so, so grateful to Vijayji for explaining to us in various satsang and also personally what Vanaprastha is actually. I must have asked this question 20 times in the last 2 years to make it clear in my own head that I'm ready for Vanaprastha. For me, it is to cut down my secular responsibilities and increase my spiritual responsibilities because I want to spend more time with sadhana. I desire more satsang. I naturally want to do more swadhyay, more reflection, more contemplation, spread this knowledge and just share it with everyone. I'm not sure how I'm doing with time. I think I'll just take a couple of more minutes. So just one thing about Artha I want to share. Again, Vijayji and Vivekji share that Dharma, Artha, and Kama, if they're not leading us to moksha, they're useless. And particularly with Artha, we may have millions of dollars in a bank account. It's of no value if it's not taking us to moksha. I must acknowledge that I was conjuice. I was too attached to my money. 10 years ago, if you'd asked me, I would say, why should I share my hard-earned money with anyone? And then when I really got this knowledge through Vedanta, I started questioning, who does this wealth belong to? What did I do to deserve this? This Jagadishwara Arti that I've been singing from age 3, I would say. But when I understood the real meaning of it, Tan man dhan sab kuch hai tera, tera tujhko arpan kya lage mera. It is his. He is the owner and I am the custodian. Without his will, not even a blade of grass can move. Blade of grass can move. And when I look back, I didn't come here with anything. When I moved from India to UK, I actually moved with a suitcase which was 30 kilos. And I wonder how British Airways allowed me to carry 30 kilos, but I had 500 pounds in my pocket. And that is all I had. That is all I had. Nothing else. And here I am in Canada. I have a beautiful house. I have a good car. I have 2 lovely daughters who are well educated. I have food. I have money in my account. Where did all this come from? It is totally his grace, totally his grace. Let thy grace and blessings flow through us to the world around us. Hari Om.
Oh gosh, Kamini, so much gratitude. I feel like I need to reflect on every life lesson that you shared. Our next speaker this evening is Krishan. Krishan is 75 and has retired from running his practice, which was in public accountancy, taxation, and consulting, which he was engaged in for 27 years. Krishan has been involved with Chinmaya Mission for the past 24 years and also served on the board of Chinmaya Mission Niagara. Krishan has been married for 48 years, has 2 children and 5 grandchildren. And a fun fact about Krishan is that he loves high altitude mountain trekking. Welcome, Krishan.
You're muted right now, Uncle.
Hari Om, everyone. It's so interesting to listen to the previous 2 stories. Very, very, very empowering, very encouraging. Now you're going to listen to this story, my glimpse of my experiences and little stories is a slightly different field in profession and my other interests and so on. I come from a middle-class Hindu family from India. Parents displaced from Pakistan reestablished themselves in India. I saw the little hardships they went through, and which I thought that I was going through that experience in my life when I came to Canada. When I came to Canada, I was only 23 with no professional education. And as soon as, and very soon, I'm going to be, another 2 months, I'm going to be 76. I came in order to get some education and and better myself in a new country, new adopted country, I landed in the middle of a snowstorm in minus 20 degrees in Sudbury many, many years ago. After landing, I walked on the tarmac in a simple sports jacket and a handbag to reach the terminal to find out that my baggage had not arrived. It was lost, which I received after 10 months. So I had whatever with me at that time, toothbrush and so on in my handbag. I started with that. And fortunately, I had a brother close by where I could take a shelter for a short time. And my goal at this time was to make some money and to go to university in Ontario somewhere and help my family back in India. They needed some help at that time. So I immediately started a door-to-door sales shop, a sales job. I used to sell household items and vitamins and stuff like that. And in a minus 10 to minus 15 degree temperature. And very soon after that, I got a job, a little over minimum wage. And I was able to save enough money in a few months to buy a used 1967 model Volkswagen Beetle car, which was my transportation and also served as a shelter occasionally over my head. And I did save enough money in a year to go to University of Waterloo in a co-op program, mechanical engineering program. And I went through 3 years, and in the third year when I was working as a co-op student with a multinational, I don't know what happened. My destiny made me change my field from engineering to something totally different, which was finance, taxation, and accounting. So I finished my degree in that field and went into my own practice for the next 27 years. What I learned here is that life is not that easy. Nothing comes in a platter. I had no sense of entitlement at that time. All I knew was work hard, focus on the goal and work hard, and adapt to the situation that you're in at that time, and things will work out. That was a lesson that I learned at that time. In my professional practice, generally there were no ethical conflicts, but there were two occasions that I'd faced that I had to make a decision which direction to take. First one was a client came over and he had a big project to develop a subdivision in Niagara region. And he asked me to develop a financial project, to present it to a bank for the financing. But the information they would give me, I found some holes in it, and they would not divulge the source of their seed money and so on and so forth. And the second case was, there was a religious organization from outside the country, not from India, another country. They wanted to bring large funds into this country in millions, but they would not divulge the source of their funds or where they're going to spend this money and what projects they're going to go into. Now, these were the red signals for me. I had to make a decision what to do. So I told them both that I cannot take you as a client. You can go somewhere else. Surprisingly, after a few months, one of the clients, the first client came back and he said, we want you to prepare a project and present to the bank for financing. And they came back on my terms. And not only came back, he brought me 2 new clients. Now, the lesson I learned from this was, the situations come in life, you must take the right action over the profit. And I thought I was right in making that decision. And I was very happy with that. In my personal and family life situation, as Sheetal already mentioned, I'm married, happily married for 48 years to Kamal, very supporting wife, a son and a daughter who both are professionals and very happily married. And we have 5 grandchildren. When I quit my job to go into practice, our firstborn, our son, he was only 5 months old. Life was very challenging even at that time. But Kamal supported me all the way, shoulder to shoulder. Even she took some responsibilities in the office. And our family life was very, very balanced in all aspects. Somehow this came from my parents. My father was very disciplined and very committed. And I think that filtered into me. He was a very religious person, and I followed some of his religious ways of living. I would call it religious, which I understood. The religious in that context is slightly different than the Vedanta and other things that I learned later on in life, which we'll touch later on. We did everything as we went along, whether it was children's education, or it was investments, travel, or helping people, or self-improvement, or taking care of elderly parents. We all did it at the same time. I love nature, and I've spent a lot of time in its lab. We have climbed 5 high altitude mountains in the world, around the globe. I've sailed in Aegean Sea and in the Atlantic Ocean along the east coast of United States. Camped in Sahara Desert. These are the adventures, some of the adventures we did. And some of the travels we did with our children, and now lately with grandchildren. All this was possible, I figured out, which came naturally from my father or from this religious thinking or spiritual thinking, that there must be discipline in life, and advanced planning, discipline, and a commitment. And we did all this during my professional practice and also after that. And the lesson here is commitment and discipline is extremely important in your life. If you do not have discipline, you're just not going to have balance in your life. This was the lesson that I learned. And why I mention all these travels and adventures, not for show, is just wanted to prove that it's all possible if you follow these guidelines in your life, no matter what you do. Our involvement with Chinmaya Mission, we got involved with Chinmaya Mission in 1998 when Vijay Bhai invited us to attend a Chinmaya Mission camp in Florida. And we, with our children, attended the camp. And the first text that I heard in the camp was Kena Upanishad from Swami Shantananda. And after listening to that, it blew my mind off completely. I said, oh my God, what a depth of knowledge that we have available, and we don't seek that. And right at that moment, Kamal and I made a decision to look deeper into it and learn more about it. After coming back from the camp, 4 families from Niagara who went there, under the leadership of Vijay Bhai, we laid the foundation for Chinmaya Mission Niagara, and of which Kamal and I have been board members since then. Over a period of 24 years with Chinmaya Mission, we had a lot of swamis and acharyas came and give us pravachans, and we were very fortunate to host them, a lot of them in our house, including Swami Guruji, Swami Tejavanandaji. We are so blessed to host him for 1 week in our house, and a great opportunity to have satsang with him. A lot of learning came from him. Such a master that he would sit in our family room and take an harmonium and he immediately sit down and compose something which will totally take you into trance. It was God-given opportunity. Over the years, I studied several texts, including some Upanishads, and facilitated some of the study groups, including Vivek Chudamani, which we are doing right now. We started Vivek Chudamani, by the way, in 2015, September 2015, And as of last Wednesday, we have completed 542 verses of 581. So I think we'll be finishing that in the fall sometime. Now, what did this all do for us? It changed our life. Getting involved with Chinmaya mission and beginning to study the Vedanta, learning these teachings, changed our lives completely, that we started disassociating with the kind of people that who would not want to walk with us on that spiritual path. And daily spiritual study and contemplation became part of our life. It's been there for a long time. In the end, what was the result? Result was it grounded us. And I found out that there's so many situations in life, they became so easy to accept because of that grounding. That's what Chinmaya mission did us. It gave us a lot of opportunity for satsang and so on, a totally different lifestyle. Do I still have some time left? So if I can share some of my thoughts about the Vanaprastha life. As a Vanaprastha, I should call myself in a sannyas age after 75, but actually I prefer to call Vanaprastha because in Vanaprastha is not without responsibilities. It is sannyasa when you have no duties. This is the stage of life when you really give back to the society selflessly, absolutely selflessly. That's the purpose of Vanaprastha, whether it is knowledge or other resources. Here are some of the suggestions, since there are people there, I think, still far away from Vanaprastha, but I still like to share that. My own point of view. I know Vijayji has covered this so very well, but I like to share my points as well. Set up a daily exercise program, even if it is simply a long walk. Spend time in nature as much as you can. That's when you speak to God. Make yourself financially secure. That's extremely important because if you're not, there can be a lot of disturbances. Reduce dependency on things and people. It will help reduce attachment. This is what I have personally experienced. Get involved in satsang with some kind of group such as Chinmaya mission for your personal growth. Daily study of scriptures, even if it is for half an hour, never miss. Change your conceptual experiences into real experiences. We talk about concepts all the time, but we have to begin to think, how can we change them into real experiences? That's when the change occurs. You're going to need a good foundation of scriptural knowledge and a whole lot of common sense logic. I'm going to quote a verse from Vivek Chudamani, verse number 480. It says there are three ways to gain knowledge: Guru's word, scriptural declarations, and a lot of common sense and logic. However, there is a warning here. If your logic or common sense does not match both Guru's word and scripture's word, then that logic is wrong. Keep that in mind. That's very important. And one last word is, remember, the source of scriptures and Guru's word is the same for common sense, and that is the consciousness. With that, I will close. Hari Om.
Hari Om. Thank you, Krishan Uncle, for showing us what fortitude really means and how Vedanta has shaped your life. And a huge thank you to all three of our speakers today for sharing their moving experiences and all of their insights as well. I have three quick announcements for our mentorship community. So first is, we've had a taste of the wisdom that lies within our Vanaprasthas today, but I'm sure that we all have some specific questions and personal experiences that we'd like to ask and learn about. So taking place over June, July, and August, we have High Chai. These are intergenerational chai chats, and we invite all mentors and mentees to sign up together. You're welcome to actually use one of your scheduled mentorship chats for a High Chai with a Vanaprastha. and the registration details will be shared in our Zoom chat. The second thing is we are now almost at the midway point of our mentorship program for this year. So we'd love to hear from everyone. We're publishing a short check-in survey, and we kindly require that each program participant, so both mentors and mentees separately fill in the survey in order to continue into this program. So the survey is pretty short, it's less than 10 minutes. So if you'd like, please take a few minutes right after this workshop is done to complete it, or you'll have a couple of weeks before it's due. Your feedback is really instrumental in helping us shape the program in a way that really helps us to maximize the impact for everyone. Final thing is just a preview of our next workshop. Next month, we'll have Sharanya Rauji. She is a career and life coach, and she will be leading a session on alignment with Swadharma. So she'll be providing guidance on how to bring Vedanta closer into your work and more holistically into your life. So stay tuned for more details. With that, I will pass it on to Vivekji to formally close, after which everyone is welcome to stay on the call for some questions with our Vanaprasthas, or you're welcome to jump off as well. Hurry on.
Thank you, Prem. This morning, I was sharing with our Niagara students why, in our culture, we fast as a form of sacrifice. Fasting from food, fasting from watching TV, etc. And one of the reasons for that is most of us, excluding our Vanaprasthas, the three that we heard from specifically today, most of us do not experience external discomfort. We've never experienced intense hunger, intense pain, intense loss. And so, whenever our context is not perfect or ideal, we feel so much internal discomfort. How come this didn't happen this way? Why did they say that about this? And how come I didn't get this? Can you all relate to that? And so hearing from Suryakant ji, Kamini ji, and Krishan ji, having gone through so much external discomfort, they never allowed that to percolate to internal discomfort. That is an awesome overall message that Sheila and I have been discussing, and hope that we can practice and pray that our kids can practice. Our gratitude to our established adults, all who shared today, and the fact that our community encourages this culture. It's so cool that we have a Vanaprastha culture and such dynamic personalities in our Vanaprastha culture. My appreciation to our evolving adults. This whole mentorship program is being facilitated by evolving adults. You got to hear Sheetal, you got to hear Prem. And my gratitude to our exploring adults. There's some seekers here who are 15 years old, 16 years old. And our Vanaprasthas are very proud of you because they may have started when they were 40 or at whatever age, and you're starting when you're 15. That is an awesome expression of grace in your life. We all heard about Hai Chai. We purposefully used an annoying name. That way you don't forget about it. So make sure that you register for this annoying but awesome program that is uniting multiple generations. One more announcement I want to share. Prem doesn't know about this. It was just developed this morning, actually. 2 years ago, I facilitated a course called Living the Gita, and it was based on Prince Arjuna's questions and then Bhagavan Krishna's answers. And a team of seekers has documented this. They've created a course out of this. This is our next Swatantra guide offering to our community, where you can flow through Prince Arjuna's questions and Bhagavan Krishna's answers independently, with writing, with discourses, and I will review this every month too. I believe registration is open right now. You are the first group who has access to this. So that will be shared in the chat. And if it's not shared in the chat, it will most definitely be on our website. Please register for this because we don't have any formal courses until September. So what an awesome opportunity to not just chant the Gita, but to live the Gita, like Prince Arjuna. From moha to tushta, from confusion to contentment. That can be our journey too. As was shared, we will formally complete this workshop now. I am sure that everyone gathered has a lot of questions about how can we have such toughness and hope. So do continue, and you can ask your questions and our crew will facilitate who that question is going to. And I just want to point out again that Suryakant is an hour and a half ahead of Eastern time. It's 11:30 p.m. there, and he's probably more energetic than most of us right now. So as you ask those questions, to try to be sensitive towards that timing. Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Be safe, be sound, be serene, be joy.